This video is sponsored by Mooer. Hi there, Perfecto the Castro here and welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. So I have been traveling internationally this past couple of months, starting in the Philippines and ending up in Mannheim, Germany for the 2024 Guitar Summit. And the new Mooer GE200 Pro Li was my multi-effects of choice for all those performances, workshops, and live stream guesting. So let's dive into it. The GE200 Pro Li is the updated and upgraded version of Mooer's wildly popular GE200 multi-effects. Now, I've already featured the bigger brother, the GE1000 Li, here on my channel, and the GE200 Pro Li comes in as the second option in the series. And with the announcement of the littlest brother, the GE150 Li, you now have multiple options budget-wise in Mooer's GE multi-effects range. Big thanks to Mooer for sponsoring this video and for being such a great friend and supporter of my channel. I will have all the relevant links, affiliates or otherwise, in the video description. So please use these links to go shopping and help us keep making these videos for everybody to enjoy. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's dive into the GE200 Pro Li's features. First up, you have a 3.5-inch high-color LCD screen. Unfortunately, it's not touch screen like its bigger brother, the GE1000. There's still a lot of options as far as the ins and outs go. You have the extra expression pedal input right here. This is your main guitar input. You have a mono effects loop, send and return. And this effects loop is assigned to their own block within the signal chain. You have two XLR outputs, two 1/4-inch outputs, a USB-C OTG output so you can use it as your audio interface for your computer or your phone. And like the GE1000 Li, the GE200 Pro Li runs on lithium batteries. So you can position it anywhere you want on stage and not be tethered to a power adapter or, a power outlet. I also like the updated look and color scheme. That's my color right there, purple. Now let's go into Mooer Studio and let's dive into the signal chain. The GE200 Pro also features Mooer's latest sound design language. So the tones are the same as with the bigger brother GE1000, but instead of 14 effects blocks, you only get 12. So you have dedicated blocks for different effects, your amp block, your cab block, your power amp block, your time-based block, your EQ blocks, and all that. You can switch the order of the effects blocks to your heart's content. The effects send and return have their own respective blocks, and this is great. For example, in a 4-cable method setup, you can send different, effects from the GE200 into the front of your amp, and then decide which effects come after the amp when the signal comes back via the effects return. So let's say I want to send the obsessive drive and the phaser to the front of the amp, position it there. And then I want to put the custom EQ after the amp sounds. And then all the effects after this will be pumped out of the main output of the GE200 Pro Li. As already mentioned, the GE200 Pro Li uses Mooer's sound design language. So the amp modeling is of Mooer's MNRS technologies. And here are the latest offerings. Now, as you can see in my preset, I have the amp, the power amp, and the cab on separate blocks. So you can also choose to have, instead of a full amp, to just use a preamp. Let's say, this preamp right here. And then you can tweak to your heart's content, mixing and matching different preamp and power amp types. Or if you want to save on processing power, you can choose an entire rig for the amp block, which has the cab included from this list right here. And just disable the power amp and cabinet blocks, and you'll have more processing power dedicated to the other effects. As for the cab block, here are all your options, and the Mooer GE200 Pro Li also comes loaded with chopped tones impulse responses right here. Okay. And if that's not enough, you can load your own third-party IRs, up to 20 of them. But the proof is in the sound. So let me walk you through the different setups and scenarios that I used the GE200 Pro in during my travels. Okay, the first setup and the most obvious one is to use the GE200 Pro Li as a standalone multi-effects. So here's the preset that I used for a video performance shoot for one live, one profile PH. Here's the signal chain. I have a noise killer in the front, and then a wah that I click on and off using the expression pedal, an obsessive drive for, a gain boost, a phaser in front of the amp for fun stuff, and the amp of choice is the Slow 100 distortion amp model. Now the effect send and return are disabled because, again, I was using this as a standalone multi-effect. And then the custom EQ is set for an EQ and volume boost after the amp for solos. Then that goes into a dual delay and then a room reverb, and then into a power amp with EL34s and a 4x12 cab model. Now you may be wondering why these are last in the chain, and I will explain in a little bit. So here is the tone. For extra control, you can go into stomp box mode. And from here, I have the first bottom switch set to my tap tempo. And then the next switch controls my obsessive drive or the gain boost. And then this controls my custom EQ solo boost. And the last button controls my dual delay. Now for that guesting, I stepped through a medley of my recorded guitar solos. So there were multiple tempos, which I took care of using this tap button right here. Different shades of overdrive, so I was glad that I could kick in and out the gain boost whenever I wanted. And same goes for the EQ solo boost as well as the delay. Another thing that made that shoot easy is the Bluetooth capabilities of the Mooer GE200 Pro Li. So it can act as a Bluetooth audio receiver. So the backing track that I played over actually came from my phone. Okay, so that's an example of why I have the stomp box set up just like this. I have my rhythm tone, and then when time comes for solos, I can kick in my EQ boost to lift the guitar up. And with the backing track mixed in and coming out of the GE200 Pro Li, it was very easy to record great clean guitar audio for that video shoot. Come back to this part after watching this video all the way through and click on that card above to watch that performance. Now, aside from video production, I also use the GE200 Pro Li in an actual recording session for my godfather, Mike Hanapol, the godfather of Pinoy rock. So for that session, I used the same preset And I went out of the XLR outputs into the audio interface of the studio. And from there, everything else was pretty much conducted like an old school recording session. But instead of recording to tape, we recorded to the studio's DAW with all the performances and tones committed to the takes. So there is no tonal replacement or reamping after the fact. In that run and gun situation, the GE200 Pro Li also performed really, really well. I did not have the Mooer Studio with me for that session, so everything was tweaked using the onboard knobs. Now, depending on the already recorded tracks, I was able to tweak the GE200 Pro's either cab or EQ settings or amp settings or gain settings. That way my parts cut through nicely through the mix. And it made for a quick session too. So the producer was very happy, he saved a bunch of money. Okay, so the next setup, practical real world use scenario that the GE200 Pro Li was thrown in was as a standalone effects processor. For my first show in Bacolod City, Philippines, I used the GE200 Pro Li as, a pure multi-effects unit, wired 4-cable method with my Blue Guitar Amp 1 Iridium. Now for that show, we had a big stage. It was outdoors and we had a bunch of other guitar players on the bill. So I had the Blue Guitar Amp 1 Iridium driving a 4x12 cabinet in the back of the stage. And wired up 4-cable method, the GE200 Pro Li took care of my gain boosts, my solo boosts, my delays, my modulation, and my reverb. Here are a few clips. Okay, now to help recreate that setup, I will use this LPD87 preamp pedal, wired 4-cable method into the GE200 Pro Li. Okay, so here is my preset for that, the PDC 4-cable method. Then let's also go into stomp box mode and you can see how I'm controlling everything. Okay, so looking at my signal chain, I have the preamp, this preamp right here, the LPD87. For the gig, it was the preamp of the Blue Guitar Amp 1 Iridium. That was hooked up to the effects send and return of the Mooer GE200 Pro Li. And in the signal flow, I have my guitar going into the GE200 Pro Li, and that went into the noise killer, the red compressor, the full distortion, the phaser, before going out of the effects send. So all these effects blocks are going into the input of the slaved preamp. And then the output of the preamp goes back into the effects return, and from there, I have the custom EQ, the dual delay, the reverb, and then the UK Gold power amp and the cab IR block before going out of the main output. So this is the reason why I have a power amp and a cab at the end of the signal chain. That way, when I have a 4-cable method setup, I have the option to send a, cabinet treated signal out of the XLR outs. Now, a question you might have is, if I were running an actual cab on stage, wouldn't that be affected by this cab treatment in the signal chain? Well, Mooer has a clever fix for that. So go into System Settings and then scroll down to Cab Sim Thru. Then go into that. And what this does is if you engage it, cabinet simulation will only be applied to the XLR outs and the OTG output. But you don't have any cabinet simulation going out of the 1/4 inch jacks. So the untreated guitar signal went out of the 1/4 inch jacks into the effects return of the Blue Guitar power amp, and that was blasted through that glorious 4x12 on stage. So I had the best of both worlds, a roaring 4x12 behind me, and the sound engineer has nice clean signal via the XLR outs that is pumped through the front of house with a nice IR tied to it. Now with the LPD87, this is how this preset sounds. Now, for this LPD, I think I want a different cab IR. Let's use one of the chop tones. Let's see, Brit 4x12. Let's go into stomp box mode. And then from here, the already crunchy 87 can go into liquid lead territory by turning on the distortion block. Okay, let's check out another preset. So I'm going to go into my 4-cable wet preset. Okay, let me show you another 4-cable method preset. So let's go into my 4-cable method lead preset. And this is cool. So go into stomp box mode and let's click on this button. Now you're hearing the LPD87. And now I have a clean sound. Okay, so this is how that works. Stomp box mode is not just for controlling a single effects block. You can actually control multiple effects blocks, like in a control scene mode. So what I have is this foot switch controlling the effect send and return blocks, as well as the amp model block, which I have a US bass amp model assigned to. So this is my clean sound, which is the 59 US bass. And when I hit that foot switch, it will turn off the amp model and activate the effect send and return, or pretty much activate the LPD87. And from there, I can put a fuzz face on. So you can use this trick to swap between your Mooer GE200 Pro amp model and the preamp of your actual amp. or pedal. Now for the Mannheim Guitar Summit, I also used the GE200 Pro Li 4-cable method with a Mighty Rev G50 high gain fire breathing amplifier. And the neat part about that setup is that the G50 also accepts MIDI commands, which allowed me to use the GE200 Pro Li as my MIDI controller to switch channels on the G50. So for that setup, I had a MIDI cable coming out of the MIDI port on the GE200 Pro Li, and that is plugged into the MIDI input of the G50. And from there, I easily programmed and assigned each of the G50's channels to my GE200 Pro Li presets. Here is that clip of me explaining it during the workshop.
So you're hearing a combination of both. The cab on stage is unmiked, and the tone that you're hearing on the speakers is the XLR out from the back of the amp. So this saves a lot of setup time for sound engineers and for guitar players. Like our sound man Toby upstairs, how long did it take me to set up? 2 seconds? No, not that quick. 2 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes, we put the amp in, I plugged all my cables, we plugged the XLR, we turned on the mixer, and it's that simple. So, and the important thing is that the digital stuff is in the back end. It doesn't interfere with the feel. So all my effects are here. I switch the amp channels. I mean, if you look at the light at the of the head, the light indicates the channel that it's in. So green is overdrive, purple is the high gain. It looks purple, but it is blue. That's a clean sound, and I can switch through the amp as well. Shows you that those tones come from the amp, not from my multi-effects. These are just for the delays and the extra sauce, so to speak. Yeah, so that's why I play these amps. Okay, thank you for that question.
So with its performance in these real-world use case scenarios, the GE200 Pro Li can very well be the multi-effects of all trades for the touring musician. Finally, I should mention that this multi-effects is small enough that it fits perfectly in a mono tick bag, as you can see right there. And since the GE200 Pro Li has a lithium battery, I had to carry it on with me on the plane. So the size form factor is pretty important because you can't check it in. Okay, there you have it. That is the new Mooer GE200 Pro Li, as used in my international traveling performance workshop, giving content creation whirlwind of a series of trips. Again, big thanks to Mooer for sponsoring this video and for giving me free rein in presenting the GE200 Pro Li to all you guys. And when you're ready to get your very own GE200 Pro Li, please use my affiliate links in the video description. Thank you so much for your extra support. YouTube thinks you're gonna like this next video, so click on it to watch, then go grab your guitar and play something. You all know the drill. Practice makes perfecto. Cheers, guys.